Hello, everyone. Welcome to the East African Affairs show. Our today's show is going to be with a guest, and we'll be responding to Getachew Reda's interview with GPS. And you can comment, as always, as we say it in Tigrinya, you can comment and even ask some questions if you have. But we obviously will be responding piece by piece with my guest. Stay with us. Mickey, welcome. Welcome to this show. I think it's our first time, right, in the East African Affairs show?
It is, yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. As I said it earlier, we'll be responding to what Getachew Reda was trying to instill into the international community and even to our community. It was an absolute drift for me, but I'll see what your responses will be. I will display a video as an introduction, just instead of starting from our views. Let's just display the video and show what Getachew is trying to say to the public.
Sure.
TPLF leadership is trying to do is to see if aligning, an alliance with the Eritreans could save them from a real or perceived threat from the federal government. I will fight to the nail against my erstwhile comrades, because what they are trying to do is to invite the federal government to fight whatever war, whatever conflict it might have in Tigray, and that would only happen at the expense of the people of Tigray, at the expense of my sisters, at the expense of my brothers, at the expense of my parents.
I think Getachew is trying to tell us three things in here, as per my understanding. One is he's telling us that the federal government might have a war on the people of Tigray. And he's trying to tell us that this war is being invited to Tigray by TPLF. I would like to hear your views on what he said. Again, Getachew is a federal government official, and isn't it against the Pretoria Agreement? I see it against the Pretoria Agreement because the Pretoria Agreement says that no one from both parties will insist or trigger or say anything that triggers war. What's your view on this, Mickey?
Okay, well, thank you. So let me say, since it's our first English show today, Dr. Haile, but I typically would say Haile, but I will say for the appropriateness of the audience in the international community, particularly to those, my eagerness to approach this discussion today in English is we have an amazing young diaspora. During the atrocities of Tigray, they rose from Australia to Europe to America to Canada and other nations around the globe, and of course throughout the country in Ethiopia, and particularly in Tigray, which was to defend the people of Tigray. The declaration of war in Tigray in the year 2020, which is using the Western calendar, was never a two government war. It was a calculated by the federal government of Ethiopia to eliminate the entire population in Tigray. Let's just be very clear to those who need to reflect back 5 years ago. We knew that the federal government of Ethiopia shut down the doors, basically every opportunity from Addis Ababa to Mekelle, which is roads and even transportations from Djibouti coming to Mekelle. It was shut down before the war. The war was declared by the Abiy Ahmed administration, who came to power in 2018 via interim administration when Desalegn Hailemariam resigned from office. To give
Hailemariam Desalegn, just to correct you on the name.
Thank you. So upon his resignation, through crooks and hooks, which in the first place, he was not even be eligible to be the president of the country or the prime minister of Ethiopia, but they removed the OPDO chairperson, Mergesa, I believe was his name at that time. So and that will take us a long history of it. But to fast forward and to come back to your question is that Getachew Reda was sent to Pretoria representing the government of Tigray.
Mm-hmm.
And when he and not 8 others with him, along him, 9 people represented Tigray at the order of the Tigray regional government and the Pretoria Agreement, he meaning Mr. Getachew Reda, made it sound that it was his decision, he signed it, and he can still speak about the Pretoria Agreement on behalf of the people of Tigray, which is absolutely wrong. The people of Tigray, the TPLF as the leadership of Tigray, gave Mr. Getachew Reda the opportunity to lead Tigray as an interim administration. He failed.
The president
of Tigray. He failed TPLF as a party. He was incompetent and unable to lead and unite the people of Tigray. He put the blame, every failure of his leadership, he blamed it the TPLF leadership, somehow that they don't have the desire to unite the people, to lead the people, or to have vision for the people of Tigray. That is false. So he left Tigray to join the very government that ordered atrocities and what we believe a genocide was committed in Tigray,
mm-hmm.
and was ordered by the very government that Mr. Getachew Reda is now joined to commit genocide, the war that he's talked about, that he's blaming TPLF. TPLF repeatedly, although it's in Tigrinya, have said they do not want the war. The people of Tigray do not want the war. The people of Tigray, TDF and TPLF united are working to avert any future war. That is, we see the propaganda. They're blaming TPLF, joining FANO, joining Eritrea. There is no joining. There is people to people, what we know with the people of Eritrea, to make peace, to live as neighbors in peace. That peace process started Mr. Getachew himself by meeting the Eritrean officials while he was in power. So to shift the narrative to TPLF is false, and for him to insinuate that TPLF is inviting the next war to Tigray is totally false and fabricated.
Yep. So Getachew raised in just the in the video that I just played, he tried to raise that this peace agreement that he said, the people-to-people relations, is a means for TPLF to, as a rescue means. You know, he stated it that way. But my question is, the entire interview was meant to be about the Horn of Africa, but he made it typically about TPLF, and he actually added some points about Eritrea. Initially, when the journalist, I don't know if he is a journalist or not, he actually announced that Getachew is going to talk about the Horn of Africa because it's his position to say. But he brought it down to TPLF, to Tigray, and Eritrea. I think, as he mentioned, it sounds like Getachew is against the peace deal, the peaceful relationship, all the activities that we are witnessing these days between the people of Tigray and Eritrea. Do you think this way is what Getachew is trying to deliver? Do you think that Getachew is trying to be against the peace agreement? Or in the middle of his interview, of course, I'll display the video as well, he tried to raise the issues related to the Red Sea, right? You might have seen that. He was trying to relate TPLF is a scapegoat to whatever was, has been committed in Tigray by the Eritreans, and it's a means also for TPLF to rescue itself from the damage or the war that might be declared by the federal government. Is that what you're telling me, or it's just Getachew is trying to take all the credits of the deal, the Pretoria agreement deal. What's I want to know distinctively what your views are in the kind of summary video that you have seen.
Sure. So first of all, what Mr. Getachew is trying to tie together, which is totally false, is TPLF working with Shabia, which is the Eritrean government. That is not what we know, and that's not what we see. Mm-hmm. The reality on the ground, again, is the border has been opened because the Ethiopian federal government that signed the Pretoria Agreement to protect international borders within Sudan, Eritrea, and any other neighboring countries. It is the federal government's responsibility. However, the federal government, from 3 towns that I'm aware, from Zalambesa, which is one of the towns, from from Rama and Shararo. Those are the 3 areas where the Ethiopian federal government has had bases, and last year withdrew in hope the Tigrayan fighters and the Eritrean soldiers would fight. And both sides refrained from fighting. And Mr. Getachew, even when he was in power in Tigray as an interim administration, he was advocating for the federal government to enter to Tigray he was declaring war on the people of Tigray while he was an interim administration of Tigray. Since he's forced out of office, he has advocated for war, for the federal, using people like the southern region of Tigray, which is Raya, Mr. Haftakiros, and others, to promote and advocate for war against the people of Tigray. So Mr. Getachew clearly is, in one hand, falsely accusing TPLF being incompetent in leadership. Mm-hmm. At the same time, he utilized the words they meaning TPLF, but he is one of them.
He was one of them.
Correct. Until
he was one of them. He is currently, he's an official of the Ethiopian government. I mean,
absolutely. So he lost everything because of his incompetency in the TPLF leadership. First and foremost, when the 14th General Assembly was taking place in Mekelle by TPLF, it was Getachew and the rest who actually pushed for the 14th Assembly, TPLF Assembly, to take place. But there was an investigation. And many of his allies, those who side with him, were involved in corruption. And when investigation revealed the corruption, then they say, no, let's not do the 14th Assembly of TPLF, because they knew those who the officials that were corrupted under Getachew Reda knew that they would be convicted of multiple crimes that they have committed while they were in power as part of the TPLF group. They're no longer part of the TPLF. And we knew after the 14th Assembly, they continued to claim, including Ato Getachew, to be the leader of TPLF. And they try to tell us and trying to fool the Tigrayans around the world that there are 2 TPLFs. One that are, wanting to have war, and one that are the peacemaker. Getachew claimed he was the real TPLF leading Tigray for peace. And in fact, there's a town called Tsalemti in Western Tigray. He said he didn't care those who committed genocide on the people of Tigray, or whether they were there or not. He said he will return the IDPs to that town. And what happens? He released them.
He returned some of them, and we knew that what happened was going to happen, and it happened actually. And in reality, they killed them. They not only killed, they even brought them to places that we don't know still. The crisis has already shown us that what Getachew has been trying to do was he was trying to act as a messenger of the federal government, and he took the lead to destroy what the dreams of these people were.
Correct. So we knew in that town he did not plan security. He did not return there's a process. The Pretoria Agreement was signed between two parties, TPLF and the federal government of Ethiopia. Within the agreement is for Tigray to have its security forces to be, which they call them Lihail, or you have like police force and militia and all those, basically that to bring Tigray back to prior, how it was security wise prior to the war was declared on Tigray. That is not what Getachew was working ever since he came to power for over 2 years. He in fact was the puppet working for the people of Tigray as a leader of the Tigray people, but working against the people of Tigray. And when it was discovered that he was actually an agent of the PP party, which is the federal government, we call them, but in my view, to make it a federal police, a federal government, you have to have representation from all the states within the country. Tigray still does not have a federal representation. Getachew Reda is acting, he represents Tigray. He does not. He is actually the East African advisor to Abiy Ahmed. What is he doing then? He's sabotaging the Pretoria agreement, and he wants to see war. He said he will fight until he dies. He wants war. He declared war, and that is against the Pretoria agreement. So it is not. It's contrary to what he says, that it is TPLF who is inviting the war by siding with Eritrea. TPLF is not siding with Eritrea. The people of Tigray are choosing their destiny and saying, we no longer want war with our neighbors, whether it be the Amhara people, the Afar people, and the people of Eritrea. That is the desire and the hope of the people of Tigray. People to people networking, communicating, and talking is the peace process that we need. So in fact, what TPLF has said is that these are discussions taking place between people to people, and we respect our people and we respect the people of Eritrea, and we will support that. Anything beyond that, we have not seen Tigrayan military and Eritrean military doing any kind of joint exercises or training. We have not seen Eritrean officials in Mekelle or Tigrayan officials in Asmara. So this false narrative in the language that he believes, and he also talks how on some of the video, he talks how he was a law student, but he never practiced law. Well, he's actually, if you study law, you should know the basic how law works. You do not defame a regional government and a party that was leading the Ethiopia as one of the 4 top party in the country, that he talks about 130 million people needs access to sea. Nobody says Ethiopians can't have access to sea. There's a difference between owning a sea and having access to sea. But that's a separate topic, right? But he mentioned about the 130 million people. The 130 million people are also accounted for the people of Tigray. So when they talk,
I think he was trying to reason it out, how by just saying how Ethiopia, how critical Ethiopia is to the world, and the population is 130 million. That's going to be a burden to the international community unless Ethiopia gets an access to sea, and the migration stuff, all the economic empowerment that Ethiopia could bring to the East Africa if Ethiopia gets access to sea. And as he mentioned, I think, of course, he said it well by himself. He didn't practice law. He was against the law. He was against international law. If a country is landlocked, of course, it might have some ways that the country may get an access to sea, but it shouldn't be by taking someone's port by force. He was just trying to explain Ethiopia may wage a war on Eritrea, basically on Eritrea, and that is because of the international law says so. Would you think that actually works in reality? That's my question. But let me add one thing. Let's display a video that actually would help for the audience to understand what he's trying to say and what we are trying to respond in reality.
After that, there was an interim administration. That's
yes,
essentially still active.
That's why Pretoria was signed. But the signing of the Pretoria, everybody welcomed it because it gave us a relief of sorts from the kind of carnage. You know, I will tell you this. About 64 days into the last round of conflict, we lost a certain amount of, we had a certain amount of casualties, fatalities. And the 10 days between my departure to Pretoria and the signing of the agreement, 10 days, we lost twice as many people as we did lose in 64 days. It shows you how difficult the situation was. But the thing is, we fought really hard, but the political leadership was supposed to do the kinds of thing. Well, he was supposed to provide supplies. It didn't.
When you say the political leadership, you're referring
to the TPLF leadership,
the TPLF,
myself included.
Right. So
you know, we had to be realistic. For example, we came up with a 7-point peace proposal. But when we saw that the situation on the ground was in our favor, and then we abandoned it altogether. I mean, it's not like the option for peace should be shelved simply because the developments on the ground seem to favor your advance on others. But Pretoria was signed much to the relief of the people of Tigray. That and the decimation of the entire population was at least averted. The Eritreans had a fallout with the Prime Minister Abiy simply because he signed the agreement. Because the Eritreans were publicly saying that they would stop at nothing to destroy the entire TPLF leadership, which, for stronger reasons, also means the entire population.
History.
Yes.
Okay, I think I may have to stop it here. We will continue with the video. But what I understood from what he said so far is, number one, he clearly said that we lost in the war. And we signed the agreement because we lost. That sounds to me that Getachew understood how the Pretoria Agreement was signed. Like, he was trying to say that the federal government gave us some privilege, a privilege to the people of Tigray. He signed the agreement to save the entire population of Tigray. Otherwise, the federal government had the upper hand. That's my understanding, actually. That's what he's trying to say. Was it this way? Is it your understanding too? That's my question to you. Secondly, he's trying to blame, not to blame, just to give all the genocidal crimes to the Eritrean government and the Eritrean people. Of course, Eritreans have committed genocide together with the federal government. For me, that's how I understood the situation. But he's trying to, push all the burden to all the crimes to Eritreans. And that seems to me that he's trying to free the federal government from whatever genocidal crimes they committed on the people of Tigray and in Tigray and in the land of the Tigrayans. Is that how you understood? Or my third question is, like, if we were not able to sign the Pretoria Agreement, we would lose. And that loss may have led to the entire, to the extermination of the entire population of Tigray. Is that your understanding, or you might have understood it in a different way? Let me know yours.
Sure. So first, the federal government also say that TPLF were dismantled and decimated like powders, which is, he said in Amharic, TPLF and Dedukwe, like, I think it was in Amharic, he said it like, like in a sense to sway Ethiopians that they were no more TPLF, right? So TPLF somehow, a powder is like, what he called it, Dukwe, right? Dukwe is like powder. So,
it's a flower. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So if TPLF were decimated and destroyed within, I believe, the prime minister says it within 10 or 14 days, But to come back to the question, of course, Getachew Reda has been and is still working to avert accountability from Ethiopia's committed genocide on Tigray, declaring the war on civilians. It was ethnic elimination on the people of Tigray. This is declared by the government of Ethiopia. Ethiopia, the country, even if Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is removed from office tomorrow, Ethiopia, the country, is going to be held accountable for the genocide that was committed on the people of Tigray. Including,
and we heard this, it was witnessed by different international leaders to the international standard. I mean, it was witnessed by the State Secretary of the United States, and even Pekka Haavisto, the then envoy of the European Union. They said that the war was aimed on the people of Tigray, and it was just to exterminate, to just eliminate the whole people of the Tigray region. And he even stated that the war was declared on the people of Tigray to either bring them back to 100 years back, or, if possible, to eliminate the whole people and the region. That was witnessed by the international community. I mean,
correct. So that was Secretary Blinken. So at the time, actually, like myself being an American citizen, we actually, like, including myself as an advocate of the Tigray genocide, I was actually directly working among Tigrayan Americans in the United States with Secretary Blinken's office. We had a direct access to the State Department, and to this day we still do. And during that war, we actually the United States government gave us special access to the State Department to communicate what was happening on the ground. And the Ethiopian federal government initially claimed the Northern Command in Mekelle was the escalation to declare war on Tigray. But we also know that in the last year and a half or 2 years, government officials within Ethiopia, current and former government officials, have then come out and say it had nothing to do with any kind of Northern Command in Tigray. The war was prepared and premeditated. So hear me out. Premeditated is something that someone plans it and they act on it. And Ethiopia publicly, including Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's advisor, Daniel Kubrat, declare that these, referring to the Tigrayan ethnics, must be eliminated, not only them, but their history. They must be every history about them, whether it be language, statue, anything that's associated and affiliated with the people of Tigray. After you eliminate the people of Tigray ethnically, you also wipe out their history. These were words directly by advisor to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Daniel Kubrat. Getachew Reda is now working alongside Daniel Kubrat to declare another atrocities and genocide. The government of the United States government, by using Secretary Blinken, declared it. Atrocities were committed in Tigray. Ethnic cleansing were committed in Tigray. Women and girls were systematically raped in Tigray. Who commit these heinous crimes? The federal government of Ethiopia's troops, the Eritrean troops, the Somalian troops, every element, including Fano and Amhara militia. We know this. There's no denial to that. Mm-hmm. So when we say making peace with Eritrea is the right thing to do, does not, completely wipe out what happened in Tigray. But for Eritreans to be involved in Tigray, it is Ethiopia that invited and opened the channel to have its own citizen be ethnically eliminated, including over 20,000 Tigrayan ethnic federal troops within the federal government were rounded up, and many of them were killed. And some of them are still in jail to this day, simply being ethnic Tigrayans, but served for Ethiopia as proudly Ethiopians before the war. What did those 20,000 plus Tigrayan ethnic Ethiopian troops do? They served the country alongside with their other ethnics from the various ethnics within the country. But it was calculated, premeditated, and Getachew Reda is now siding with the very people who have committed atrocities and genocide on the people of Tigray, and he's shifting that narrative into Eritrea. So you cannot, Tigray still, to this day, is part of the country, Ethiopia. While there is, we're having a conversation what route to take next, as we speak, Ethiopia did not protect the people of Tigray. In fact, Ethiopia committed atrocities and invited outsiders to come and help them to eliminate the ethnic. So to come back to the other question is that Mr. Getachew declares we lost more people in the 10 days after he departed to South Africa, to Pretoria, than the 64 days of fighting. That is false.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is that including when the Eritreans and Fano enter Shire, Saralaka, Aksum, Adwa, we knew there was heavy fighting. And in fact, Eritreans took heavy loss in Adwa, which
Nevertheless, yeah.
I mean, all the way to Nebelet. And then for 31 days, they tried to take over Adigrat. They were not able to. They, in the south, they tried to take Maicho and Mohoni, which is Maicho is the main city for southern Tigray, and they attempted, and they were not able to. So the notion that Abiy Ahmed just gave us a gift and fed us because he doesn't want us to die, he doesn't want to finish us, is ludicrous. This is you cannot get any lower than this puppet, Mr. Getachew. Yesterday, you were supposed to be proud Tigrayans. He say he's going to fight until he die for his mother and for his father. Fight for what? We're saying we don't want fight. We don't want a war. It's also against the Pretoria Agreement. Anyone working for the federal government of Ethiopia or part of the TPLF to publicly or privately say that we're going to fight. There's a war. We're going to. That's a threat. The Ethiopian government is using Getachew, Reda, and others, including this media that we're not fully aware, including the interview person. How did this all of a sudden just showed up? The international community, let's make it clear. The United States government, just this past week, is share and release a statement, a concern about Ethiopia's economy, about Ethiopia's mistreatment of people in Tigray, in the Amhara region, and Oromia region. The amount of kidnapping, the mistreatment, the rape, the killing, the inaccountability that's happening in Ethiopia, the United States government declared that. European unions are pulling away from Ethiopia. There is a deep concern within the international community. So what Ethiopia is now, I believe, is doing is they're doing anything they can to find English language, which is actually what forced me personally to come out to speak about Mr. Getachew false narrative and lies against the people of Tigray and against the TPLF, is that we are still waiting for the government of Tigray or TPLF, hopefully, to give a response to this. And I think hopefully they will, and which I think it would not surprise me at some point they would prepare and have a statement. But nonetheless, that should not stop us as Tigrayans to utilize the opportunities that we have at our disposal, which is you as a leading media in Tigray and at the international stage for broadcasting in Tigrinya, adding English is that audience who need to know the truth. We should not, we should not allow Getachew, Reda, and the Ethiopian government go around and using puppets like Getachew and defame and destroy Tigray, because TPLF does not want war. TDF, as a Tigrayan Defense Forces, does not want war. In fact, the Tigrayan Defense Forces wants peace in Tigray, wants to go back. Those teachers, they want to go back to teaching. Those students, they want to go back to learn. Those farmers, they want to go farming. But until the peace process, the Pretoria Agreement's is implemented, until the entire IDP, more than 1 million people from Western Tigray, has not been returned yet. This is the fifth year, the fifth winter that they're suffering in Tigray. We just had recently in Mekelle, a child displaced or born during the displacement was eaten by hyena in Mekelle. Eaten by hyena because these children do not have home, because they're thousands of kilometers, miles away from their home in Western Tigray that's still occupied by occupiers from other regions, not Tigrayans, being by Tigrayans. In Western Tigray, the federal government has the ability, and he is unwilling to allow the security services of Tigrayans to go back into Western Tigray and to return IDPs and support, because simply the atrocities committed in Maikadra and other part of Western Tigray, we know that the international community will go and see it, and that would further be damning for the government of Ethiopia. So the tactic that's used for Western Tigray is also other resources, access to Sudan, to have access, like we have an access right now with Eritrea. The plan was to keep Tigray 360-degree blockage. We saw it during the war, and the federal government of Ethiopia want to continue that. So by having Tigray
still under blockage anyway. Tigray is still under blockage. As I said it, Getachew is trying to explain things in the other side, in the enemy's side, in the enemies of the people of Tigray side. He's trying to be an advocate for the Ethiopian government and averting whatever happened down to Eritrea. Now, the Tigrayan military commanders have been trying to explain what the situation was looking like during when the Pretoria Agreement was signed. I can actually mention one commander who was openly stating how the situation was at that time. I think Colonel Hagos Gebra was trying to say that the military commanders had their own plan on how to defeat the enemies. You mentioned it well. We knew that our commanders would come back, and the commanders were saying it out loud. We have seen it in Nablus, in Zalambasa, and they were able and really hopeful to defeat the enemies. But in the meantime, because of the people of Tigray and the Tigray Defense Forces intention is just to bring the situation back to normal, they actually agreed to sign the agreement. But as you said earlier, Getachew and the team the team as a whole was sent on behalf, to agree or to sign the agreement on behalf of the Tigrayan government. But all of a sudden, the Ethiopian government asked that the agreement should be with TPLF, and Getachew was there to sign on behalf of TPLF, and he signed already. He signed on behalf of TPLF, and now he is blaming TPLF as if they know nothing on what could happen next. They were totally blind. That's what he said. We will just watch the video. I think that is a living witness, a living evidence. Let's watch a bit from the video, a piece of that interview, and then we'll come back.
And the hardliners in the Amhara were also insisting that this opportunity should not be wasted.
Yeah.
That they should finish off TPLF, and of course taking land in all kinds of things from Tigray and all that. So so it put a stop to it. So the arrangement was, the prime minister was clear, and he didn't want 5 of the executive committee members, myself included, to be the face of interim administration. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the then chairperson, I think, is still the chairperson of the party.
He's trying to pretend as if he doesn't know who the chairperson of the party is. But I think he's trying to say that Abiy Ahmed, the prime minister of Ethiopia, was not interested to see the party leaders in the interim administration. That is an absolute lie for me, because it was a pre-made, as he said it earlier on. it was a premeditated one. Not only the war, but also the inauguration of the interim administration of Tigray was a pre-made. They actually dealt about that in Pretoria. Tzadkan was telling us that someone from among the representatives of the Ethiopian government asked him to be the president, and he denied. Then they asked him again in Kenya, and he said again, he denied it. Even in Halala Kela, Abiy Ahmed asked him by himself. So it was a pre-made. Actually, they knew who to bring to the front so that he can act just like what Getachew Reda is trying to do, to be an advocate of the federal government. But my question here is actually, I would like to continue a little bit.
Or he claims to be.
You're not in touch daily anymore.
No, I'm not. And I am so much the better for that.
He's so much the better of not being a member of TPLF and a member of the leadership of TPLF. That's what he's trying to do.
You became the president, and then you were running the region alongside the TPL leadership, correct?
Yes, I was part of the leadership. I was trying to accommodate them, but the TPLF is steeped in the tradition of totalitarian control of everything.
And you've talked about this before, how there's sort of a disconnect between, I think, a generational disconnect, you would say?
But I don't want to dwell much on it, because I know of people who belong to that generation who are not fugitives from reality, who want to come to terms with reality, unvarnished one. But the problem is the TPLF leadership. I'm an outlier of sorts, but even me, with that outlier status, we're not immune to the kind of totalitarian tendencies that. So, but I realized when I became the president, it was impossible, because it was supposed to be an inclusive administration, and I cannot take dictates from 4 members who are absolutely misguided about everything. They don't have the gray matter. They don't have a clear idea of what the world thinks about them.
Right.
They don't have any clear idea, even the foggiest idea of what it means to be in charge of Tigray and what it means to try to.
I don't know what to say in here, but he actually mentioned 3 to 4 absolute indicators of stupidity for me. He said it's a generational disconnect. Even the journalists mentioned it. What does a generational disconnect mean? As far as I know, there are members of the CC, the Central Committee of the TPLF, who are actually about 80 to 90% of the members are younger than Getachew Reda. He's talking about 2 or 3 people, but the leadership is collective, as we know. TPLF's leadership is a collective leadership. That's how we know them. Is there any generational disconnect? What did you understand from this? That's my first question. And second, he said he's an outlier from the, he's trying to compare himself with the so-called totalitarian. I think I would give this word to Getachew. He was trying to act as an absolute totalitarian. He was, bringing everything to his side, and he was trying to dictate us, not only the TPLF, even the people of Tigray. You know what he was trying to do in all the cities? The zone administration changed, the district administration changed, just because that Getachew considers himself, he actually puts himself in the air of importance. He is the most important person, as per his thinking. But I think, isn't it an absolute stupidity saying or blaming the whole hundreds of thousands of TPLF cadre, TPLF leadership, even those who were with him, and putting himself this much in the air of importance? What did you understand from this? What would he say as a general comment? I think we cannot go into more details, but you can put some words in here.
Sure. I mean, based on his behavior, the choice of word he used, it's simply arrogancy. Arrogancy comes or when someone is like cocky, when they feel they know everything but others don't, this is very sad, because the reality of it is, you know, I have not been involved in Tigray politics before the war started in Tigray. So my understanding of Tigray politics is the last 5 years. Within the 5 years, however, what I've discovered and what I've learned, understanding about TPLF, is TPLF works collectively.
Yeah.
Within TPLF leadership, my understanding at least is one person or two people do not decide for Tigray or for the party, which I find it very, very wise, very collective.
It's very wise. And just to add some words in here, this seems to be, for me, was the impediment that Getachew faced. Getachew wanted to dictate the whole region, but the trend within the TPLF was just collective leadership. I think that's my take in regard to what he said.
And when somebody claims to be a law student, he studied law, legal matters. Okay, so you know, okay, I'm in the U.S. obviously, so I understand legal matters, and in my life I've done that. You know, I work for state government, so some of the work I've done, I understand how to interpret like state and federal statutes and laws, and being someone who's studied law does not go this low. It's very sad. But let me say this. So in the 5 years that I've tried to study and trying to understand about Tigray and Tigray politics and TPLF, the collective leadership. So let's start with the current leadership. My understanding is 62%, and this is a quote, and this is also stated by the chairperson of TPLF, Dr. Debretsion. 62% of the 45 member of the TPLF executive leadership are in the younger generation. And that was part of the change they made, 62%. Now, they have 9 that are also within the 45, there are 9, what they call them, the top decision makers, or they're the ones that will...
Yeah, the strategic leader. Among the top strategic leaders, they call them polit.
Correct.
It's polit into green. Yeah.
Yeah. So out of those 9, 7 of them were actually part of the younger generation. There's only 2 out of the 9 that are part of the former TPLF leadership, which are the chairman himself, Dr. Debretsion, which he actually recused himself and did not want to continue, but he was asked to not leave because we don't want to see vacuum leadership in Tigray. So until you bring the younger generation and work with the older generation, you can't have him removed from office completely. So he stayed at the request of those who said, hey, we need you to stay within the leadership. So, but let's talk about, so outside, so he's one of them. The second person is Miss Tafetlower, which is Menjorino, is the nickname that utilized for her. So she has very wealthy experience as a woman fighter, as a politician. She, actually last year I had the opportunity to meet with her to discuss with her about Tigray politics, the situation, what they've gone through. I found her to be very calm, collective, mindful, respectful. She, just her professionalism and approach in conversations. I thought I found her like, I wouldn't even imagine what she's gone through in the 17 years of struggle, and then in the 27 years of leadership in the federal system, and then to go back again with the 2 years of brutal war that we saw in Tigray. And then after that, losing her husband. Getachew was talking about, Abiy Ahmed did not want to kill them all, right? But ironically, so I discover actually, among Muslim and the rest that were killed actually were not fighters in Tigray. One of them, is her husband, right? So, so these people actually, the top diplomat like Muslim, were assassinated. They were not part of the fighting when the war was declared in Tigray. These people, and we have like Mr. Asmedlash, who was also like a disabled person. He's, he had a loss of vision because of the 17-year struggle or the war, from what I know. And Haye, and so all, so those people were not leading a fight in Tigray when they were assassinated. They were just killed, just simply being a political figure. So the whole plan in Tigray was, you don't just fight war, but you kill the key people. You get rid of the main people. Like, see, Muslim is known for 20 plus years of experience in China just in diplomacy alone. I mean, so the list goes on and on. But let me just add the younger generation. So you have Ato Amani El-Safa, who is currently the second commanding TPLF, which is the vice chair of the party, and also the vice president of the interim administration. You have people like Leah Kasa, which I admire and respect, younger generation. She was not part of the 17-year struggle. In the Pretoria agreement, when they travel, you have people like Dr. Fattah Hafizian. He's among the younger generation. I mean, to me, I can go on. Like, you have Dr. Solomon Kidane. I mean, there are others, of course, right? So out of the 45, again, 62% are from the younger generation. 7 out of the 9.
They are well educated, including the doctors. You're actually calling them Dr. Solomon, Dr. Fasaha. So it's just for people who are just watching us to understand that they are not only from the younger generation, but they are also well educated ones. Getachew said he actually was in the academia, just like me. And he was trying to, tell us that he didn't practice law. He practiced law, but he didn't, exercise that.
Yeah, he studied, but he didn't practice it.
Yeah, he didn't practice it. Correct. So my additional question, just from what you said, he was trying to say that they don't have even the foggy vision on what the world says about them, how the world, treats TPLF, and what the expectations of this leadership is, in the eyes of the world. What does that mean especially when it's said by, a person like Getachew Reda, who doesn't even know how to run a state? He was given the biggest opportunity in Tigray. That's the top position in Tigray. He was given that position. He was unable. He failed it. But when it's coming from a person like Getachew Reda, what does that mean? I think for me, he is trying to create a chasm, a sort of crack within the TPLF leadership, and even from among the so-called elite of the Tigray region. Unless it is for this purpose, is it really soundable when it comes from a person like Getachew, who actually failed in different ways, and then finding him saying that the leadership doesn't have even a foggy understanding on what the world says about them? How did he take this?
Sure. So, and I agree with you. The few that I name, Dr. Solomon, Dr. So-and-so, is that, in the last 27 years, when Ihadeg, which TPLF was part of that, had an amazing economy and an amazing peace in the country, these young people that we call them doctors and whatnot had the opportunity to educate themselves, and they're loyal first to the people of Tigray, and second to the party they are part of, TPLF. So let me just say this from the diaspora perspective. Getachew Reda is speaking as a voice, but the main orchestrator that's speaking behind Getachew is the federal government of Ethiopia declaring war on the people of Tigray. Let's just be very clear. So Getachew might be the puppet to speak on this media, but those who are talking about war, those who are trying to eliminate us, is still the federal government of Ethiopia. So the international community and Tigrayans in the diaspora and at home who fought for their existence have to understand that such bureaucracy and such hypocrisy and such like an attempt to divide our people and to fool our people that this TPLF leadership is failure and they're old generation and they don't understand, and somehow he was trying to accommodate them. Accommodate them what? Who needs to be accommodated, actually, in my opinion, is Dr. Getachew Reda in the United States of America. Dr. Haile, we have a place called Alcoholism and Drug Treatment Center.
Mhm.
Okay. And these are for people who have been unable to manage their bodies and they survive with alcoholism. They have to consume alcohol 24/7. Isn't it true that Getachew Reda cannot survive without alcohol? Isn't it true that he's been going back and forth to Dubai for treatments? Isn't alcohol part of the issue that he deals with? Including, and I've spoken to in the last 5 years, some of his close friends that went to college with him. I mean, they talk about how nice guy he was, but how much alcohol he consumes.
Mm.
So to me, if anything, I think TPLF was wise in some of the decisions, but where it went wrong is when they brought in Tzadkan alongside with Getachew. I think the biggest failure, if I may, is having Tzadkan. Like, to me, is just like the devil, inside the snake. What we call it when Adam and Eve were full.
Yeah.
The devil was, within the snake. So what you have is a guy who consumes so much alcohol, and he's not competent enough to lead the people of Tigray. He was the one being accommodated, not the other way around. So TPLF collectively, they could have easily removed him from office immediately, but they went to the people of Tigray. They discussed how best to pursue and what to do so that we don't go into war. And the people of Tigray understood and saw what was going on. And Getachew Reda was peacefully removed from office. In fact, he left office.
Mhm.
And to continue to be the spokesperson for the federal government declared war on Tigray and committed genocide on Tigray, supposed to advise the discussion to begin with was supposed to be talking about the Horn of Africa, right? So was the discussion about the Horn of Africa? Absolutely not. It was to discredit TPLF's strength. What I know and what the world know or should know is most diplomats, in fact, travel to Mekelle, travel to Shire, both cities in Tigray, to meet with TPLF leadership and the interim president of Tigray, and including the leadership of the military, the TDF leadership, military leadership. He has attacked the TPLF leadership. He has attacked the TDF leadership. I mean, this is really not acceptable, and we as a Tigrayan cannot just sit and allow this sort of like betrayal to our people. And the people of Tigray has a voice from you, from myself, and others who actually not only respond to this false accusation, false blames, is that with the leadership of TPLF, Tigray is at a better place today. The focus now is for the federal government to implement the Pretoria Agreement, to return our IDP. In that interview, Getachew Reda did not discuss about the Horn of Africa in great length. He did not discuss on why the federal government is not wanting to implement the Pretoria Agreement and return our people to Western Tigray. He did not discuss why the federal government is, as we speak, digging defense areas in Koram and Alamata as we speak today and yesterday and the day before. I mean, why? There's not fighters fighting the federal government in Alamata, in Koram. Yes, there are Fano fighting in Waldia and other places, but that's not happening in Alamata. That's not happening in Koram. That's not happening in Takaze. That's not happening in Salemti. So why aren't we discussing about the Pretoria Agreement? Isn't the Pretoria Agreement to be implemented so the Tigrayan forces can go back home, so Tigray can be at peace, and we can have a constitutional order in the country to go back to have Tigray representation at the federal level? Getachew, the bottom line, is not representing Tigray. Let's just be very clear on this.
He's a representative of the federal government. You're right, but just to add something into what he said now, I didn't see anything different from what Getachew said when he left Tigray. He said it in an open air that he's going to do all his best, making sure that TPLF doesn't come to power. That's actually what he's trying to say. What he's trying to, whatever he's trying to mislead the international community and even the Tigrayan diaspora, for example, is that he's trying to make sure that people understood TPLF the way he wants them to understand. Like, he's trying to tell us that TPLF doesn't have even a foggy understanding on what the world says about them, while the TPLF is dealing with different issues, with different organizations and different prominent politicians in the world regarding the current situation in Tigray, including what he said, the IDPs and the territorial integrity of the state and whatnot. So TPLF is on the desires of the people of Tigray. TPLF is working on the desires of the people of Tigray and the current burning situations in Tigray, like returning the IDP with their government and the security forces of Tigray. But Getachew is actually trying to make sure that we do not get our land back from the invaders, that we couldn't get, or we shouldn't get our kids back to school, and that we do not get medicines and stuff to Tigray. He's actually pro the federal government. We know that, and he said it out loud when he left Tigray. But my question now is, shouldn't it be considered as a crime against the Pretoria Agreement and against the law of the land, even the Ethiopian constitution, when he says, as a federal government official, when he talks about Tigray, and Tigray has its own government, so he's trying to pretend as if he's the governor of the state, right? So isn't it a crime? While the state has its own government and the government is supposed to talk about Tigray, he's telling us that he is going to fight the official or the government of Tigray, making sure that the government doesn't do its own best to secure whatever the people of Tigray desire. Isn't it a crime, is my question. But let me add one thing. You can take a note of this question. I would like to hear your response. Isn't it a crime? So all the diaspora, especially the youth, should consider this as a crime committed on the people of Tigray. It's just repeatedly committed on the people of Tigray. So we should be, as serious advocates of the people of Tigray when people like Getachew comes and confuse and distort or defame whoever wants to hear the reality on the ground in Tigray. But this is my question. But let me add this video.
Out of the kind of destruction and misery that the war wrought on the people of Tigray.
What were the dynamics like? Because obviously you were president, so you reported into the federal government and the prime minister ultimately, yes, whereas the rest of the party did not. So, I mean,
no. The thing is, I would consult them on a number of issues, but I would want to. But they're not used to being consulted. They're used to
being in charge,
dictating. So every time they would call a meeting.
He was part of the leadership, and he's actually insulting himself as well. He was part of the leadership. All of the sudden, when he became the president of the interim government, and of course representing TPLF, he's just trying to tell us that he is free of all the misery that as a leadership, TPLF might have failed. We know that, and even TPLF has mentioned as a party that they failed to somehow, but Getachew was part of it. And at the moment, TPLF is trying to regain everything into normal while he's becoming the biggest impediment of that move. Let's just add some more.
You know, under normal circumstances, executive committee meetings happen in 3 months, once in 3 months. And I told them, I'm not going to be meeting with you guys.
Look at this. Now, this is true. I know, I have evidences of this. He was telling them that he's not interested to meet them. He's not interested to attend the executive committee's meetings. And that was one of the ways that he was trying to confuse the people of Tigray, as if TPLF was the failed one and he was the one trying to, to regain their desires, to bring Tigray into normal. That is the absolute lie. I have some evidences. I'll add those evidences after your commentary. But let me just bring this a bit forward and then see this one as well.
We're not particularly sensitive to that part of the people's demands, right? Mm-hmm. So you know, every colonel, every politician, especially the most disgruntled ones, are the ones who have a sense of entitlement to power, not just in Tigray. Some of them are unrealistic enough to entertain the illusion that they could one day, and probably one day soon, be in the corridors of power in Addis. And they have been trying to convince the prime minister that he better work with them than with me or with other people. These are people who do not have the courage of their own conviction, but at the same time would put people in harm's way simply to achieve whatever ugly ambitions they have. It's absolute control over resources, absolute control over everything and anything in Tigray. So,
we're the witnesses, Mickey. We're the witnesses that Getachew was trying to gain the absolute control of the state, absolute control of the power. He was the one who appointed the anti-corruption commissioner. He the one who appointed the justice director. He the one appointing all the leadership, while it was not the trend, the tradition in Tigray, not just the PLF, in Tigray. Even if you go back to the times during Emperor Johannes, he was trying to introduce federalism, right? That is actually the tradition of the people of Tigray, not to control everything, to be led by a collective leadership. That's not the tradition of the PLF, but he's misleading the world, defaming the TPLF, as if they are so greedy in power and they would do anything possible to get power, to get position in the federal government. Is it the TPLF or Getachew Reda who have been begging Abiy Ahmed, and now he is assigned as a minister, an advisor to the prime minister at the current moment, right? He's the one there. It seems to me that he's telling us his ambitions and what is on his head. Is it the TPLF? Are they that greedy? Have you witnessed that in Tigray? Is that what's happening? What is he trying to tell us and tell the world? Is it in kind of defamation? They would come, as per my advice to the TPLF, as you said earlier, they should come out loud and tell the world the reality, how Getachew Reda has been acting, whatever he has been doing in Tigray. What's your take in what he said just now?
Sure. So clearly, I think you pointed out so it's a sabotage. Getachew Reda is sabotaging TPLF and sabotaging the people of Tigray. He mentioned that they will do anything to put people in harm's way. Well, in fact, he's the one put the people of Tigray in harm's way. He's the one for 2+ years cut off the people of Raya to not communicate with the rest of Tigray or with TPLF as a leadership. In fact, he's the one that put the people in harm when we talked about people, how he sent them to Zalemti earlier, so I'm not going to repeat that. Your question is it a crime, what he's doing?
Yep.
I think Getachew Reda has done enough to put him in a criminal offense. Obviously, the people that he sent to Zalemti that were killed, that is a criminal act as leader. And the equipments, the missionaries, the tanks, vehicles that were part of the war in Tigray, he's the one illegally signed off documents without having any kind of bids or any of that whatsoever, and cleaned it out so that a sign of genocide, evidence of genocide, will not be found in Tigray when the Pretoria Agreement was signed and he was the interim administration of Tigray. And yet I was attending a lot of the Zoom meetings, the heated discussion that we had. In some of the discussion, the blame was shifting to TPLF, that TPLF were the one ordering for all this military equipment from Tigray to be completely erased. We have folks here in the United States, in the state of California, flat out on a record that we still have it to this day, talking how they destroyed Tigray, TPLF, the blame being TPLF. The fact is, Getachew Reda also admits that the executive TPLF meeting used to take place once every 3 months, and that he didn't want to attend to that meeting, but yet he is the one cried like a baby and saying that he wanted to be the chairperson for TPLF, and when they told him that's not the process, then he went on to say, I want to be the vice chair. That was when Miss Manjarino or Fetlowork was the vice chair of the party. Do you know, actually, they sent mediator to request her to give up her position so that Getachew Reda can have that position? I mean, this is like, I mean, I'm telling you, like, from what I know of 100%. And actually, she was shocked to hear, because that's not the process. The norm is you go through a voting process, who should be the chairperson, who should be the vice chair, and how the rules are governed by the TPLF leadership. So they've gone through so many accommodations actually to accommodate Getachew, and then he said he was accommodating them. It's actually flipped. So it's the other way around.
Yep.
It was TPLF as a party collectively, as a leadership. Let's just be clear. So when we talk about TPLF, we're talking TPLF an ideology, but we're talking about the people who led the party. Okay, so like in the United States, we have Republican and we have a Democrat. In the election, sometimes the Republicans come on the top and Democrats lose. Sometimes the Democrats win, the Republicans lose. Tigray is not at that stage, of course, but under TPLF leadership, there are multiple like political parties, political entities within the state of Tigray. Okay, so what was Getachew doing? So he talked about people. People being in harm's way. What I recall in my visit, even multiple visits that I had in Tigray, is that Mr. Getachew did not respond to Abiy Ahmed sitting next to him on Ethiopian television, speaking to the audience in Amharic, saying, I gave Tigray, I gave you, Getachew Reda, $45 billion. I mean, sorry, birr. 45 billion birr. That 45 billion birr was spent in Tigray for Getachew Reda refusing to follow his leadership, including part of being the vice chair of TPLF, to join a meeting once every 3 months. He said it himself. We heard it, right? But he used a $45 million to print T-shirts with him and Sadkan to go out and tell young people, we don't need TPLF. You're the young people that's going to lead tomorrow. But Sadkan himself, in his 80s, approaching his 80s, was the one leading a lot of this movement a lot of these meetings or discussions to turn Tigray into violence, into division, to say, this group has to be removed. This group is, acting better than the other. There was a targeted area within the leadership of Getachew and Tzadkan, and some of those, I was on the ground myself, the way they were mistreating the people of Tigray. So talk about the harm's way. When you are targeting certain people from certain area in Tigray, this actually was like on the work by Getachew. So is that a crime? Of course it is, because people got killed as a result of this. The hanging that was happening, the security situation, the Tigrayan fighters amazingly fought, to defend Tigray and to defend themselves. But he was demonizing them. He was making it sound like the war that we fought was worthless. That fighters were feeling like, why do we fight? And that was under Getachew Reda's leadership. His failurity is being shifted to TPLF. So the short story of this is that, yes, Getachew Reda, if he wants to represent Tigray, if he wants to fight for the people of Tigray, he would need to do it in Tigray. You cannot work with the enemy that is not willing to implement the Pretoria Agreement and talk about Tigray or talk about TPLF or talk about the TDF leadership or TDF management. He clearly, his failure on his own leadership is really unfortunate, the least to say, obviously, but for him to behave in this manner, again, I refer to the tactic used by the federal government that was supposed to by force take the Eritrean port, and now they realize that potentially that the Tigrayan fighters or Tigray will not allow a war to take place in Tigray. We're not talking about Ethiopia declaring war in Eritrea through the sea or through Afar, but through Tigray. Simply, Tigrayan leadership, TPLF, the people of Tigray, and TDF have said, no, we have had enough fighting. We have had enough war. We do not want our people to have another war in Tigray. That is very clear. So for those of you who may not deeply follow the Tigray politics, or who may not follow the Tigrinya that we've been speaking like constantly on medias like Dedebit and others, we want to make sure that you get the clear message. You understand that what's happening in Tigray is that the people of Tigray are working very closely with TPLF leadership, and TPLF with the consultation of the people of Tigray, the consultation of TDF, and the interim administration, which is the TPLF is part of the administration, and the leadership, which is led by General Tadesso already. Just yesterday, as you know, we have multiple people that were supposed to be, gathering in Afar and to fight Tigrayan fighters, leaving Tigray supposedly, and now they're coming back because they realized that was not their intention. The calculation used by Getachew Reda, by General Tzadkan, by the federal government is also against the Pretoria Agreement. The Pretoria Agreement clearly says neither party could advocate or provoke that can potentially be viewed as provocation of war. And that's what the federal government has been doing through its military leaders, through Getachew. Tzadkan himself recently in Tigrinya announced for TDF to be violent in Tigray, to take action such as, we can basically, with all the rapes, with all the atrocities that took place in Tigray, he announced it in our native language in Tigrinya to go ahead and take action to fight back to the military who is trying to defend the people of Tigray. I mean, this is the kind of like coward leadership that we're seeing with the very government that is saying you cannot have like fuel, you cannot have normal life in Tigray. We will not allow you to return your IDPs back home. You mentioned earlier, they don't want our children to go back to school. Of course not. Because when you think about it, 5 years of loss of school is tremendous. 5 years of suffering is tremendous. So last thing, I remember you mentioned like about 2 months ago, the fuel coming to Tigray normally under the normal circumstances is 15 million liters, right? 15 million supposed to be per day. Now, from what you say, it's 1.5 per day. That's even if they're lucky enough. They're not even getting it per day anymore. So from 15 million to 1.5, what does that tell you? I mean, that
even the 1.5, even the 1.5 has stopped now. They stopped the, even the 1.5. It's not, let alone the 15 million. They actually quit everything. They blocked everything, and none of this, a drop of, not even a drop of fuel is reaching out to Tigray. Yeah. So let me just add the final video that I have here on my screen, and we can actually finalize. We've been so far 1 hour and 20 minutes. I didn't expect it to be this long, but I think it's worth it. Let's see this video first.
For myself, but they were angry because I'm not the kind of guy they could give orders to.
So we have a few more questions that I really want to get to, and we're running very short on time, so we only have a few more minutes. How would you, and just quickly if you can, how would you describe the relationship with Eritrea, between Eritrea and the TPLF leadership currently?
You see, I had started the engagement with the Eritreans as an interim president. My hope was that another round of conflict, whether it involved the Eritreans or the Ethiopian federal government, would be would be a nightmare scenario for Tigray. So I was trying to make sure that there was that rapprochement of sorts without necessarily having to abandon the issue of accountability and all that. But the leadership, the older leadership of the TPLF assumed that me working with the Eritreans and at the same time working with the federal government was too much to handle. So they wanted to take advantage of the situation, and they started working. But the Eritreans are very clever, and they know that they don't have the numerical advantage to fight the federal government head on. So they want to use whatever opportunity presents itself to use useful idiots the other side of their border, to the south of their border, including Tigray, the Fano and other people, to destabilize the country. That's pretty much what they want to do, because they don't mince their words when it comes to their intentions.
And that's
so what the TPLF leadership right now is doing is to try to shove this new reality up your throat, down your throat, that the Eritreans are our brothers. Well, Eritreans are our brothers, but the Eritrean leadership under President Isaias was in the forefront of committing the kinds of crimes that the people of Tigray had to suffer.
And that's also making quite the statement towards the federal government.
That's what
by having that kind of relationship.
That's
by
what
opening
I'm
those
talking about.
doors.
And you see, so what the TPLF leadership is trying to do is to see if aligning, alliance with the Eritreans could save them from a real or perceived threat from the federal government. But the best.
Well, so as I tried to mention in the beginning of this show, Getachew is clearly telling us that there is a threat of war coming from the federal government to Tigray. That's actually my understanding. So he is reasoning that out. The TPLF is trying to escape or to find a rescue, and they found the Eritrean government to be available close enough. So they are using that so-called SUMDO, the public-to-public, people-to-people relation between among the Tigrayans and Eritreans as an scapegoat or a rescue means. That's what he's trying to say. But you mentioned earlier on, it's public-to-public, people-to-people, and none of this is actually against the law, and none of this is actually against the fact that peace has no border. That's actually the reality. But I have 2-3 questions that you may have to address briefly. Number one is, wasn't it the TPLF that sent Getachew Reda to discuss with the Eritrean leadership? It was in Dubai, I remember, and Getachew was sent by the TPLF leadership with a clear note, a clear letter from the chair of the TPLF. That's my understanding. And now he's trying to tell us that he started the discussions with the Eritrean government, and it was just in a way that it's his best contribution to the peace. He just began that. That wasn't the reality, as per my understanding is concerned. Is that the same thing that you have as an evidence? That's my first question. Secondly, how on earth is it possible to blame the TPLF for making peace, even if it is just handling this the way that Getachew is trying to tell us? If TPLF is trying to make peace with Eritreans, how on earth is this damaging? Could this be considered as a damaging step for the people of Tigray? When it comes to the so-called peace deal with Eritreans, when it's done by this man, Getachew Reda, it's the way to peace. And when it's done by somebody else within the TPLF, after he left the state, actually, after he left his position, he's trying to consider this as a crime. And he actually mentioned useful idiots as well. What do you think he's trying to tell us? Isn't he the one who perfectly fits to this word? He is becoming a useful idiot, a tool for the federal government to fight against the people of Tigray, those who are dreaming and working hardly to get back to normal. I think I would give this word to him. What's your view on this? And my third question is, like, he put the Eritrean government as smart enough to understand what's going on in the region, but in somehow he's also considering them as the one who actually bears all the load of genocide that was committed on the people of Tigray. So how are these things balancing each other? I know that Eritreans and the federal government and even other external actors have participated in the war, the genocidal war committed in Tigray. But is it a way that is it? Do you think it's a perfect way to explain how we feel about the Eritrean government? We know we have a distinct definition of the Eritrean government, and we have differences. There are distinctions between the people and the government, but the way he said it doesn't sound right for me. So what's your take?
Sure. So it's interesting he captured the same thing I captured. He said that the Eritrean government is trying to use useless idiot people in Tigray and Amhara, and he went on, and that's simply,
he called them useful idiots. It's the Fano and the TPLF. Right. He's trying to call us useful idiots, and even to add some more, he said ugly interests. Even in earlier on, we didn't actually take this word as well. They have ugly interests, and the so-called ugly, in his view, is begging for position in the federal government, just like what he did. So I would give these words to him, but let me hear from you.
Well, when one becomes useless, they use that word to turn around and to paint someone else to be useless. But the useless person is the very person that's speaking. That's Getachew Reda. He became useless when he left his people that, brought him to power, gave him the opportunity to leave Tigray. He failed. When he fell, he could apologize to the people of Tigray and, step down and work with the people in Tigray. That's being admirable. But when one becomes useless, you go become a puppet to the very enemy that is still telling you your people are not worthless. Are not worth of anything. Getachew, as a Tigrayan, is not seen as a normal human being like the rest of Ethiopians at the federal level. That's why there was ethnic cleansing. Anyone don't obviously Getachew has a short memory, because when Abiy Ahmed say the short memory, that defines Getachew Reda. In during the war in Addis Ababa, anyone who is ethnic Tigrayans was being arrested, their home being searched. So is that not ironic that Getachew Reda has such a short memory, that the very government that was arresting civilians in Addis Ababa, killing them, just by falsely saying that they are associated with TPLF. These people, some of these people were born and raised in Addis Ababa, and some of them actually barely spoke Tigrinya, because Amharic being the primarily language spoken at the capital. So isn't that ironic that Getachew Reda, being useless himself, is calling TPLF and others like as useless? He is a useless one. So I'm going to leave it at that. And then he talked about Eritrea being smart to use Tigray. And I'm just like, we as Tigrayans, this is an insult to the Tigray people. It's not just the TPLF, what he's saying. We're not fools. We're not relying on Fano. We're not relying on Eritrean forces or Eritrean government. What we are doing is we are trying to make peace, including the rest of Ethiopia, so our people can be returned back home. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in one hand, he also talks in length. I've listened to the video. It talks about how Eritrea doesn't have the manpower to fight Ethiopia's 130 million people. That's why it's expanding to work with Tigray, and TPLF is finding a savior. No, TPLF is ideology. The people of Tigray collectively defended themselves. Okay, so Getachew got it wrong. TPLF as a party, the people of Tigray determines its destiny. Where and how TPLF leads Tigray is the individuals who are put in place to lead. If they fail, the people of Tigray takes action by removing them. Yeah, of course, it's we're at a war right now. We don't have the political luxury to even go to this extent, but that's the bottom line. Okay, so and then he talks about Eritrean government is smart. So like, see how he's mixing it. He says like, oh, they're trying to use Tigrayans to fight Ethiopia, and that TPLF is working with Eritrea. That is not the case. Again, this is a people to people, rightfully so. Americans do not need a permission from their federal government to go to Mexico, to go to Canada, or to go to North Korea, for example, is anti-America. Cuba is anti-America. I can go to Cuba. I can go to North Korea as an American citizen. I don't need permission from the American government to connect people to people. It is up to that government. So if the Tigrayans are getting people to people discussions to make peace with Eritrean people, there's no way to connect that. It's the fear, by the way, the so-called federal, by the way, OPDO, which is the Oromo elite who's leading the country and the military and the political arena in Addis Ababa. The fear that they have is what Getachew was telling us, that somehow if Eritreans, Tigrayans, Amhara, and Afar work together, collaborate and work together and don't want to war among each other, that's it. That is it. Yesterday, if you heard, one of the Ethiopian military is in Belarus in Europe, purchasing weapons, more weapons to use it on the people of Ethiopia, including the people of Tigray, if war is to be declared tomorrow. So it's a hypocrisy. Now, the question one by one that you asked, I want to address them quickly, is didn't TPLF send Getachew Reda to Dubai? What you described is actually true. The only thing I will add to it is, so how that came up is what I want to add to it. So it is actually, and before Getachew Reda was sent to Dubai, it is Abiy Ahmed who actually told the TPLF leadership that they need to meet with Eritrea and solve the problem with Eritrea. So it's Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. I'm telling you this from top to grand officials that I spoke to on the ground in person. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is, again, if we need like evidence, there is evidence. It is the Ethiopian government. Abiy Ahmed personally told TPLF, you need to have a discussion with the Eritrean government, and that therefore TPLF accepted that. And in the discussion, the way Getachew went around it is that he is like a little kid when they see candy or like a cake, they want for it. They don't have the patience to hold off on it. So he's the one actually told the TPLF leadership, I want to go. I want to go to Dubai. I want to make peace. I'm a better negotiator. I'm a better communicator. I can do a better job talking to Eritreans. I know them better and I can outsmart them. These are the words that he used to the TPLF leadership. And TPLF doesn't behave like that. TPLF doesn't like to act that. So within the leadership of TPLF, they had multiple discussions, but he was beloved, just like just a child that looks at a beautiful cake and they just want to dip it and eat it with their finger instead of waiting for the cake to be cut and then served with served properly. Yeah. So they didn't want to create problems. So they went ahead and discussed it and agreed for him to be sent to Dubai. They met with the Eritrean officials. He's met with them twice. The first time they had the ground laid out. When he returned to Ethiopia, he went directly, met with Abiy Ahmed, and he told Abiy Ahmed that Eritreans truly want to make peace with Tigray. That was exact. And that put a big fear with Abiy Ahmed. Abiy Ahmed was not expecting that. Abiy Ahmed was waiting to hear that Eritrea would not only reject that, but figure out a way to fight Tigray, to talk about war, to return, to sabotage the Pretoria agreement. So the expectation was wild. Then he came to Tigray, Getachew. After he met with Abiy Ahmed, he came to Tigray. He said he was consulting to the TPLF. So what he consulted them regarding that specifically was, the Eritreans kind of want a peace, but they don't trust you. They don't trust TPLF. That the Eritreans feel that TPLF would actually, fight them, and so they don't trust you. So for the next round, I think I should still go meet with them. And are the Eritreans smart? Yes, in some ways. There are, like, they have security apparatus through Ethiopia. They kind of know, they hear, they know what's going on. The spies, the Eritrean spies do a pretty good job. So the Eritrean government somehow found out what Getachew said at the federal level. The opposite of, how they were hoping. So in the second meeting, they told it clearly, when we meet with you, you told us you represent TPLF. You came to us on behalf of TPLF. The discussion is for us to have with you as a TPLF official, not as a PP. So that didn't go well. So the third meeting was canceled. At his failure to communicate adequately between the TPLF leadership and the Eritrean leadership. So that's how the Dubai meeting went. Maybe I'm saying too much, maybe not.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And after that, a request from the Eritrean government followed up to the TPLF if they could handle that discussion by themselves. Getting Getachew rid of the deal. They requested a different way, and it went in a different way. They were smart. You're right. To somehow. And they knew what Getachew discussed with Abiy Ahmed, and the wild expectation of the federal government from the beginning, when Abiy Ahmed told the TPLF to sit in a round table and discuss with the EPLF, the Eritrean government, was so different, aligning to what Getachew Reda has been doing. Of course, he's an advocate. He was a representative of the federal government than the TPLF. So he did his job. And I believe the Eritrean government did their job. And absolutely, as he said it, they are smart. They got it right, and they followed the right track. And now we are where we should be, I think. That actually is a pain to the federal government said to this man, Getachew Reda. But as a final question, to add on the two questions that you didn't address yet, what is your overall take of this interview, and what message do you want to pass to the international community, and especially to the Tigrayan diaspora, and more specifically to the youth? Because that is actually the remaining target of Getachew Reda, to confuse, when he tries to defame TPLF, to mislead the world. His target is those who do not listen to Tigrinya, who do not know Tigrinya very well. Otherwise, TPLF is doing its best to explain things in a proper way in Tigrinya. What is lacking, I think, is the English language. I think so. So I would hear from you the clear message, a solid one to the youth as well.
Sure. I'll be very quick on number two question that you asked was, how can TPLF be blamed for making peace, but it was okay for Getachew? It's clear. You said it actually, because TPLF has been smart, and the way they're doing it, that they don't want war, they want peace. They're approaching it very professionally, and the international community is evidence of that, because diplomats are coming to Mekelle and Shira, like I said earlier, and discussing with TPLF, and TPLF as a collective leadership is reassuring the international community that we do not want war. I can promise you this, even myself being as a Tigrayan American, when I traveled to Tigray, TPLF, the people of Tigray, and the leadership of TDF do not want war. I can promise you that. That is the fact on the ground. I have been in Tigray since the war started 5 times. Okay, 5 times I have entered the country. To Tigray, and it's very clear. So let's just leave it at that. So Getachew Reda, he's got it wrong, and what he's saying is false, and let's not fall for that. So that's the second question. And then the third one. So they've been blamed because they've been successful. They were united, the people of Tigray. They're working. They're allowing the people of Tigray to work with the people of Eritrea, with the people of Amhara, with the people of Afar. The TPLF are not saying, hey, we don't want to make peace. They're saying, okay, you're making peace. We support peace. We want peace. We don't want enemies. We don't want war. Even with the federal government, to this day, they have their hands open, their arms open, their minds open, but they will not compromise for anything less than the rule of law and the constitutional order of Ethiopia, which is for Tigray to be governed by the people of Tigray and by the leadership of Tigray, from Western Tigray all the way to Waja. Right. So we talked about Waja a couple of days ago in Tigrinya, so we'll come back to it in Tigrinya tomorrow, another day. So it's the success of TPLF is putting at fear Getachew and as a puppet, and his boss Abiy Ahmed. So it's fear. The bottom line, to answer your question. Okay. So that answers also the number 3 question, which is Getachew's failure is now TPLF collective leadership's success. That's an amazing thing. What I have to say to the international community is just what I say. The fact of the matter is, as a Tigrayan American, as part of the movement that I have, I stood for with my people, the people of Tigray, from the international stage, is that we, the Tigray people, at home and in the diaspora, do not want war. We have nobody within the TPLF leadership, with the TDF leadership, with the people of Tigray, wants to war with Ethiopia, with Eritrea, with Amhara, with Afar, even though we are the victim of atrocities declared by the United States of America, and a genocide genuinely has been committed on the people of Tigray, and the trauma that has been endured on us in the diaspora is tremendous. Despite all of that, we are willing to sit down and have a conversation, and to have accountability and have legal process take care of what we endure. So the international community should enforce the implementation of Pretoria Agreement. That is on the hands of the federal government of Ethiopia. That is delay after delay. We are approaching, in another month, it will be 3 years since the peace agreement was signed. November 2nd of next month will be exactly 3 years. There is no reason for the federal government of Ethiopia to not make peace with Tigray, to not have representation, the people of Tigray to have representation at the federal level, and for all Tigrayans to return home and the children to go to school. So that is my message to the international community. Lastly, you asked what message do you have to the youth, particularly the Tigrayan Americans, who I mentioned earlier at the beginning how wonderfully they fought, but there's not enough English broadcasting, English program by Tigrayans, by those of us who are in the media. Often we do it in Tigray now. My message to them is that what you did for Tigray was incredible. The people of Tigray have tremendous respect and love. I've seen it when I go, and I've heard it every time I travel throughout Tigray. And to this day, the people of Tigray have hope on us in the diaspora to continue to support them, to stand for them, to be the voice for them. So you are important. We need to be the voice of our people in Tigray, regardless of. Getachew Reda is misleading and trying to misinform and divide us, saying the old and the young. We respect our elders. We respect our family. We respect the TPLF leadership. Individuals within TPLF leadership, if they show failure, then they are replaceable. However, the party, the PLF as a party, it is a party that was founded with heroes who lost their lives, gave sacrifice to Tigray and to the people of Tigray. The people of Tigray have the right to support TPLF. They also have the right to not support TPLF, but that has to be peaceful. That cannot be going on TikTok, going on Twitter, going on YouTube and defaming and blaming and distortion. These are not how law and order works. These are not how you make peace. So if we are supporting the people of Tigray, we stand with them united. We stand against war. TPLF, TDF, the people of Tigray are saying enough is enough. So we have hope that we in the diaspora will work with our people, for our people, to make peace. And lastly, it is not too late to continue to advocate and to seek justice, but most importantly, to make Tigray a nation, a free nation, independent nation that would no longer be under dictatorship, that would no longer be under atrocities, that would no longer be having a 9th genocide to take place on the people of Tigray. So as a Tigrayan American, I stand with you. As a young generation, we work together to a better tomorrow. Tigray has a better future, and Tigray has a bright young people, and the older people also our people. It's because of their hard work is how far we got ourselves. So with our older generation, there is no such called young generation. It works hand in hand, side by side. Leadership in TPLF works collectively, like I say. So if we don't like individuals, we can criticize them. Tigray is a place where you can openly criticize your leaders, and you do not have to worry about being arrested or killed. Do that in Addis Ababa and other places, and let me know how that goes.
How it's handled.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. What an absolute pleasure having you today. It's actually your decision to have this in English. My plan was just to wait until TPLF responds to whatever is going on, specifically to this interview, because it's not supposed to be this way. As an official of the federal government, Getachew is not entitled to talk this much about Tigray, and even it's actually against the Pretoria Agreement, as you mentioned it earlier. It's, whatever provokes war is against the Pretoria Agreement. So I was expecting them, and I was that patient to wait until they respond. But your decision actually made it this good, this excellent show. I would like to thank you for this. And I actually got a lot from your analysis as well. That shows actually you were really prepared, and your anger that actually emanated from the reality on the ground, and the fact that Getachew was trying to do whatever defamation he might have been dreaming for. So I'm so happy that we did this today, and hopefully we'll add some more English programs to our shows. That is what I learned too, and our audience will get a lot. Whoever watches this video, they will learn a lot from whatever is going on in Tigray. So thank you very much, and thanks for showing up today.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'll be happy to do it.